There's a lot to talk about in the state of Indiana, but what I want to start with, and what to me is the biggest story coming out of the weekend, is the Indianapolis Colts traveling to New England, taking on the Patriots, and winning 25-24. Anthony Richardson was 12 for 24 for 109 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Jonathan Taylor had 25 carries for 96 yards, and Michael Pittman Jr. had 5 catches for 42 yards on the day as well. Not the best statistics. You don't look at Anthony Richardson's 50% completion percentage. You don't look at Michael Pittman's just 42 yards, under 50 on the game. You don't look at statistics like that. You don't look at the fact that Anthony Richardson had the same amount of interceptions as touchdowns. None of that jumps out at you and tells you that the Colts were stellar in this game, and it's because they weren't. But the overarching narrative to me, the number one thing that I took away from this game, was the fact that twice now, this game and the Jets game, Anthony Richardson has been successful in crunch time with the ball in his hands, lifting the Colts to another 1-point late touchdown win to salvage their season. It's happened twice now. 2 out of the last 3 games for the Colts have been wins. That's not a sentence they could have truly stated many times this season. Anthony Richardson is back in the saddle as starting quarterback, and there's another 1-point win with a late touchdown on that game-winning drive led solely by Anthony Richardson. I want to dive into this drive here in the Patriots game in particular. We saw against the Jets a 28-27 win. Anthony Richardson drives the team down the field, and when he's in the red zone, makes that rushing touchdown happen, and the Colts win. This time, there were 3 separate 4th down conversions on the final drive alone. One of them was that 4th and 3 where he finds Alec Pierce in the end zone. There's a touchdown. That puts him in position to go for 2 where Anthony Richardson runs it in himself. That 4th and 3, of course, was the most critical one. But there's 3 different 4th down conversions in this final drive. And, of course, that rushing 2-point conversion I mentioned to win it. And Anthony Richardson, that entire drive, has been finding open receivers, methodically moving the way down the field. He's taken more time in the pocket, and part of that is because he's had more time in the pocket thanks to this offensive line. But Anthony Richardson, we see a little bit more composure. He's less of a loose cannon. He's flying around the field a little bit less. And when he does run, he takes it as a calculated risk. He understands that based on his read of the defense pre-snap and during the play especially, which is something that we saw Anthony Richardson lack a little bit in the past, he's found the moments to run. He's found the moments to find the creases in the defense. Potentially, if he can attack them with his legs, he does. Or he sits back in the pocket. He finds the open receiver. Maybe it's Alec Pierce deep down the field. Maybe it's Ogletree deep down the field, as we saw in this game. Or maybe it's Josh Downs, 5-yard out route. We see those 5-yard slants. Anthony Richardson has been finding his receivers. He's been playing the game much more methodically and similarly much more successfully across the board. He's assessing the defenses and he's attacking them very well. Now we're talking about the New England Patriots, and the New York Jets. These are 2 bad teams, right? I believe they both have 3 wins. The Jets might have 4. I believe both teams are 3-9 now, however, at the very best. And these are 2 bad teams, right? AFC East, not the strongest. These 2 teams round out the group there in 3rd and 4th in that division. These are the defenses that we're speaking about when we're talking about Anthony Richardson, sort of picking them apart. Now, I do happen to believe that the strength of the Patriots is their defense. They had Julius Peppers back for this game. He was suspended and sat after some legal trouble. The Jets have an incredible defense as well. You look at Sauce Gardner, you look at some other pieces for the Jets that really have an opportunity to thwart offenses and have thwarted offenses earlier on in the season. Anthony Richardson, though, bad teams, good defenses, he's picked them apart. I don't know exactly what that means, and we won't know exactly what that means until 2 weeks from now when Anthony Richardson takes on the Broncos. The Broncos have a legitimately strong defense. Is Anthony Richardson and this Colts offense going to be able to have a similar amount of success in that game? Time will tell, and we'll talk about that Broncos game in just a second. But regardless, Anthony Richardson, his ability to read the field during the play as well as pre-snap has improved dramatically. This game was won on a play-action call, right? We found out in the post-game press conferences, things like that. Anthony Richardson, the call from Shane Steichen was a play-action call. So run-pass option, right? In that moment, Anthony Richardson has a choice where he gets to kind of decide, is he going to throw? Is he going to run it up the middle? He chose to run it up the middle himself, and he was correct. They scored. Colts win the game after putting together a somewhat shaky defensive stance, leading the Patriots at midfield there, kicking a field goal. It was just short, and the Colts win. Reliable, successful, and clutch are three words we can use to describe Anthony Richardson in this game. And so far, across the board in his recent games as he comes back into the starting role, these are all qualities seen in we want to see in an inspiring franchise quarterback. Anthony Richardson has brought the Colts back. He's revitalized this team and put them in position to make a push for the playoffs. Some negative aspects of this game, right? The Colts were outplayed, but they were not outscored. So that's ultimately what matters, who outscores the other. Colts scored more points. They won the game. That's all that matters at the end of the day. But they were outplayed by the New England Patriots across the board, which is largely unacceptable for a team looking to qualify for the playoffs, who's playing against a team with only 3 wins this late in the season. They were outthrown 238 to 109. Drake May had 238 passing yards. Richardson had 109. They were outrushed 200 to 104. The Colts had less first downs. I believe it was 23 to 20. New England also had more time of possession. The Colts lost a turnover battle 2-1. So how did they still pull out a win, right? In every single category that people use to measure, statistically at least, which team played better on the day, which team theoretically deserved to win more on the day, all of them, the Patriots checked the box, right? And the Colts still came away with a win. And the answer for why that happened comes to triumphs in the red zone, right? The Colts went 3 for 4 on red zone attempts. That means that the 4 times they went to the red zone, they scored a touchdown 3 times. They had a field goal in their only other attempt. So every single moment where the Colts were in the red zone, they were going to score some amount of points, put some amount of points on the board on that trip, which is incredible. We saw in the Lions game them settling for field goals a little bit more than maybe we would have appreciated early on in that one. When that game's close, when it's 0-0, when it's 7-3, Colts got in the red zone and were forced to kick field goals. But in this game, absolutely improved upon that. They scored a touchdown 3 times. That's a total of 24 red zone points. I suppose it was 25. All of their points came from while they were in the red zone, but 25 out of 25. 100% of the points that they possibly could have put together there on those opportunities, they took advantage of. 3 touchdowns, 1 field goal on 4 attempts. The Patriots, on the other hand, they were 2 for 6. They had 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals, a missed field goal, and that end zone interception by Julian Blackmon, an incredible defensive play by the Colts secondary there. So the Patriots got in the red zone more often, but the Colts converted those opportunities into scores while they were in the red zone the most, right? So the Patriots outplayed the Colts, but the Colts outscored the Patriots. The Colts were better in the red zone. And at the end of the day, that's the category that matters most when it comes to scoring. And scoring is the category that matters most when it comes to winning games. And that's exactly how the Colts did it. I also want to briefly touch on the pass rush for the Colts. 4 sacks, 5 TFLs, 3 QB hurries. They sacked Drake May, in a crucial touchdown opportunity multiple times. Those red zone trips, right? A couple of those field goals, both of those field goals, I believe, occurred after Drake May was sacked. Had an opportunity to score, had an opportunity to throw the ball to the end zone, and was sacked. Or at least rushed out of the pocket, at least forced to make an errant throw. We saw the one great coverage on that out route where Kayshon Boutte is in the end zone by the sideline, and Drake May has no room to throw the ball to Boutte, first of all, but he's also being rushed out of the pocket towards the sideline himself. Incredible defense from the Colts across the board, but the pass rush is what shined the most in moments like that. For the future, right? Looking towards the future, what do we have to take away from this endeavor? Some narrow wins against bad teams might not be encouraging for the playoffs if you're looking at the Indianapolis Colts, right? The Jets, beating the Jets by 1 is great. Beating the Patriots by 1 is great. Doing both of those things in the same 3-week span is great. But if the Colts are looking to make the playoffs, they're probably going to be the 7 seed. Eventually, they're going to have to go on the road to play someone much stronger than themselves. I worry that the Colts may not be able to parlay this success into a moment like that. A game like that may end up being a blowout, similar to what we anticipated the Bills-Steelers game being last year in the 2-7 matchup in the AFC playoffs just last season in 2023, although I suppose that would have been 2024 by the time we got to the postseason that year. So narrow wins against bad teams. Is the success, is the bright spots that we've seen from the Colts recently these last 3 weeks in this Jets game and this Patriots game in particular, is that going to be applicable to games against likely playoff teams? We're going to find out in 2 weeks. The Colts are on bye this weekend, and then they take on the Denver Broncos. And that's what I want to talk about the most, because the Broncos take on the Browns tonight at Mile High Stadium. Monday Night Football, that's at the time, at least, that we're recording this. The Broncos haven't played the Browns yet. If the Broncos lose, it sets up a battle for the 7 seed, right? If the Broncos lose, they'll be 7-6. They're 7-5 at the moment. The Colts just picked up this win over the Patriots to make them 6-7. Theoretically, if this is a 7-6 Broncos team and if it's a 6-7 Colts team, when these two teams meet, the winner of that game would take control of the 7 seed, because they both would be 7-7, and whichever team won would have the head-to-head tiebreaker over the other, which is critical at this point in the year. It's likely that the Ravens are in. It's likely that the Chargers are in. It's likely that it's between the Denver Broncos and the Indianapolis Colts for who's going to take that last spot. The Bengals could still push up there. The Dolphins could still push up there. There's still plenty of room below the Colts where teams could potentially jump up with some successful games, strung together in a row. But the Colts are most primed to do exactly that. They play the Broncos. If they win, if they lose, it's likely over. Because not only are you now 2 games away from the Broncos, you're really 3 games away, because you have to surmount that tiebreaker as well. You can't be tied with the Broncos. You have to have a better record than them. And with, at that point, 3 games left in the year, down 3, it's just not going to be possible. It's not going to work for the Colts. That Broncos game is likely an elimination game for the Colts, at least. And a win would set them up for a position where they control their own destiny for the 7 seed, squarely sitting there with the 7 seed, and an opportunity to play their last 3 games against the Titans, the Giants, and the Jaguars. Those are 3 very winnable games. 2 of them are at home. Both of those division games are at home. They go to New York to play the Giants, who are arguably the worst team in the league. That could be 3 wins. They control their own destiny. If they beat the Broncos, go to the playoffs as the 7 seed. That's the best case scenario. That absolutely could occur with a win against the Broncos again in 2 weeks after the bye week. Are the successes that we've seen against bad teams like the Jets and Patriots going to be applicable against a quality opponent like the Broncos? We await to find out. And a win against Denver would move mountains for the Colts' playoff chances across the board. After that, again, it's the playoff race. If you beat the Broncos, you control the 7th seed, and then you control your own destiny with 3 winnable games with the Titans, the Giants, and the Jaguars coming up after that. This Colts team 6-7. They have a losing record. Again, their quarterback, Anthony Richardson, threw at a 50% completion rate in this past game. Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr. carrying the team in their respective categories. The Colts don't really have a lot going for them at this point. They're not going to win a Super Bowl. They're probably not going to win a playoff game. But somehow, some way, after this Patriots win, I could not be happier to be a Colts fan in 2024. And we've seen a lot of promise from Anthony Richardson for this season, for the potential postseason, and going into next year. And I can't wait to watch it all play out.